Power up fall projects with Ego at Lowe's. Every tool delivers power beyond belief. So whether it's leaves, limbs, or lawn cleanup, count on Ego to deliver the power, performance, and innovation you need. And now for a limited time, save up to $60 on select blowers, chainsaws, and pole saws. Shop Ego today at Lowe's. Offers valid through 10/1 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Welcome to the Shabby Detective, yet another Columbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Chris Dashew.
Mike, I'm feeling a little parched at the moment. Can I have some of that famous Mike White iced tea that I've heard so much about?
Sure, I've just got a cup right here in my projection booth.
Oh, whoa.
On this episode, we're talking about the fourth episode of the third season of Columbo, Double Exposure. It was directed by Richard Quine, who had directed a few other episodes, at least Dagger of the Mind. I can't remember offhand what else. Written by the one and only Stephen J. Cannell. This is before he would go on to do Hill Street Blues and Rockford Files and just pretty much own the airwaves after a while, as well as Greatest American Hero with Mr. Robert Culp, because Mr. Robert Culp is back. I don't think that we are done with Culp. I think he might show up one more time during the run of the show, but this is the big three. This is the third of the big three for Culp here, as Bart Kepple, the doctor of advertisology,
Motivation research specialist.
Man, oh man, he will not let you forget that either. I'm surprised he doesn't point to his degrees up on the wall. This guy's very, very into his intellect here. And yeah, we've got yet another double murder. Robert Middleton, very thankless role for him as Vic Norris. And then Chuck McCann, the projectionist himself, as playing a projectionist, Roger White, in this episode, which aired originally December 16th, 1973. Oddly, this one was longer than it showed in its airtime. David Koenig has a great piece about this in his book about Columbo, where he talks about a whole opening that never made it to air, including we get to see the mentioned Tanya Baker, who's played by Arlene Martell, who has shown up once and will show up once again. Most people know her as Spock's girlfriend from the Amok Time episode of Star Trek.
T'Pring, I believe is
yes.
her name.
Oh boy. Yeah, she's pretty awesome. Ironically, she's over in Lisbon. So, Chris, what did you think of Double Exposure?
Chuck McCann, right? the way he holds his mouth, he always looks like he's smiling. And I love Chuck McCann. I have not seen him in anything other than, and this is a very deep cut. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge fan of DuckTales, so I know he did a voice in DuckTales, and I just saw him in Foul Play. But the thing that I remember seeing him in that makes, when I think of him, this is what I think of, is he was one of the people who told one of the jokes in the Aristocrats movies.
Oh,
in the Aristocrat
boy.
movie.
Yes.
And his was about, being hit over the head with a giant hammer or something. And I remember I was like, oh, this guy's funny, but I don't know what he's from. I don't know any reason as to what he would be from or who he is. And again, this a while ago, but seeing him here and now going and doing research and understanding like who he is and what the gimmick is and why he's a projectionist in this specifically, I found to be really funny because this episode is great. I liked this episode a lot. This is probably up there for me for my favorite episode of the show so far because Robert Culp is just fantastic in this episode. This is the best version of him so far, of the character that he's playing. Such a piece of shit. Like, just because we all know someone like this guy who's just so full of himself, such up his own ass. His abilities precede him, like that. He's that kind of guy. I love that characterization. I think Robert Culp really leans into it in a fun way that makes him, perfectly detestable, but at the same time, you enjoy seeing him and Columbo go back and forth because there is a level of back and forth here that we don't see, but we haven't seen in a while with the show. Having the Chuck McCann character in the episode benefits the episode overall because it gives Columbo someone else to play off of that isn't Robert Culp, who he plays off of a lot. I mean, there's a lot of Columbo and the villain in this episode going back and forth. And I like that, but I also like that there is Chuck McCann. George Weiner is in this episode for a moment. Yeah, I enjoyed this episode a lot. I think this episode is really, really good in a lot of interesting ways that both are similar to the episodes that I've liked so far, but also do something a little different. What about you?
Yeah, poor Louise Latham. She does not get very much to work with at all. She is the wife, and that's it. And Robert Culp is doing his best to try to set her up and point Columbo towards her, and Columbo wants nothing to do with it. From the very first instant, he's just like, well, I know you didn't do it. And then from then on out, Culp keeps trying. Oh, well, gun was there. Oh, and the only person that could use it was her. And it's like, no, Columbo just doesn't want to have it. And yeah, the back and forth between these two guys, I think this might be the best back and forth that we've seen between Culp and Falk before, because he was better than he was in his first appearance, and I think even better than he was in the second appearance. Here, he doesn't have that rage at the surface. It seems to be hidden a little bit more, but you definitely know that it's there because it's Robert Culp. For me, I grew up on, speaking of Chuck McCann, though, I grew up on the Far Out Space Nuts, which is not a good TV show. It was him and Bob Denver, and it was one of those Sid and Marty Krofft joints. But every time I say that I'm going to go to launch instead of lunch, it's because of Chuck McCann.
Found him to be mesmerizing in this episode. I mean, I loved every time he's on screen. His back and forth with Columbo is really funny. Like, their repartee, I think, for me is like it's kind of a standout moment of him in the projection booth, and he's teaching him kind of these tricks of the trade, and you put the nickel there and it does A. He's like, oh, okay. And then he, the thing with the iced tea and why am I so thirsty and all. I loved all of that. But I mean, again, like the real standout of the episode is the Bart Kepple character, who's just a dickhead. And you get the sense, because again, like you mentioned, there is some footage that we don't see. He's been doing this constantly to everybody. And this guy is so repugnant and so beyond reproach that he just, if you work with him, he's just going to do this to you, is clearly what's going on. I guess, so what I can't figure out is he's doing that to blackmail them to get more money to keep working with them, I guess, or to retain his services is what it seems like, I guess, which, I mean, again, for like, of all the things for a Columbo character, the reason to do it, of course he's doing it for the most capitalistic reason of all, money. And that makes sense given that A, what his character does for a living, B, the way his character acts throughout the entire episode. And see, if Columbo's episodes aren't about money, what are they about? I mean, all of these episodes, for the most part, have been about someone trying to kill someone else for financial gain or to prevent financial loss in some aspects of something like the Eddie Arnold episode. But for me, like the Robert Culp character, he's just such a standout that, like you said, like it's better than the other two times he's been on the show, but it's almost like he built up to this moment.
It's almost like he's the character that he was in Death Lends a Hand, and he's out of jail now, because he was doing the same shtick in Death Lends a Hand, this whole I'm going to blackmail you type of thing. And here, what I'm guessing is, and from what I read from Koenig's book, it sounds like Culp's character is using the Tanya Baker character to get in with our victim, and then he has all of these photographs of them together. So there is, when he calls up, and I guess he's pretending to be Chuck McCann on the phone because he's putting on that weird voice. When he calls up, I guess he's doing that, and he has the photos, and I don't know what his whole motivation is with that, because it feels, of course there's the whole converter for the gun, which really plays a big role later on, but we don't really understand that or see that necessarily as much as we maybe should in this one. But hey, I agree with you. I'm like picking this apart a little bit because of that missing opening, but I agree. This is very solid. It's got all these things that I love. It's got this, ultimate capitalist being fucked over. It's got technology, both between the projector with the nickel in that final reel, as well as the middle reel, I should say, as well as the technology when it comes to subliminal advertising. And that fucking Columbo uses the subliminal advertising back against Kepple. Oh, I love it.
You mentioned it, like, to jump all the way to the end, like the moment that he gets him in this is the fucking greatest moment of the show so far. I will say, though, however, for me, it is a little unbelievable that he didn't realize what was going on, because this guy is such an asshole. Again, like, I go back to the idea that this guy is just such a braggadocious dickhead that I find it hard to believe he wouldn't have realized Columbo was doing what he was doing, given that he like grilled him incessantly. But again, I mean, the characterization of this character, you could also see it as, well, he just thinks that he's above it anyways, and so he's not concerned that he's going to get caught to begin with. So he finds everything that he has done to be more or less airtight. And to be fair, it essentially is. I mean, that's the thing. Columbo really does have to get into the weeds here to catch Robert Culp, because Robert Culp has everything more or less squared away. And you mentioned the barrel converter. I didn't realize that's what was going on initially. I mean, until later on in the episode when he keeps going back to that lamp. But it does feel a little bit like the show is kind of withholding information intentionally, which isn't playing fair, which doesn't feel great. But the reveal is so impactful that I kind of just let it go. I don't really want to chide the episode for it, but it is kind of a little lazy, however you want to look at it. It's a little convenient is kind of the way it feels. But at the same time, I'm not a huge fan of a show withholding information, because especially a show like this has been more or less upfront with it outside of one other episode, which was the Martin Landau episode.
You mentioned the strong supporting cast here. And yeah, I was so happy to see George Weiner show up as that film editor guy, but I was also really happy to see Danny Goldman show up as the press photographer. He was almost unrecognizable with that big bushy beard that he has, but he's got that voice, that brainy Smurf voice, that young Frankenstein voice. He's the medical student that's taunting Dr. Frederick Frankenstein at the beginning of Young Frankenstein. Oh my God, I love that. And I love how he's just like, I don't know, Lieutenant, you don't have a search warrant. He's like, no need for a search warrant. I'm just here pointing at things and you taking photos of me. I love it.
No, you're right. Like everyone that shows up as secondary characters, or even just kind of like, like a Harry Hickox type, which for me is like bizarre. Okay, for me, there's one thing in this episode that makes no sense. And in what universe is what Columbo is doing okay? Showing up and just eating the food at the crime scene? I'm sorry, I haven't had anything to eat. Like, I love Columbo for that. Like, this is a Peter Falk-ism. That moment where he's like eating the caviar and he's like, oh, it must be $15 of caviar right here in my mouth. Like, I'm sure that it was in the script, obviously. Like, it's just such a fucking Falk-ism for him to be sitting there just like, hey, this caviar that's really expensive. And isn't this funny? Like, and it is. But it's such a bizarre scene. But again, like with an actor like Harry Hickok's just being kind of so like genuine about it, it doesn't stick out. But it is weird that he's like, hey, come have some of this caviar. It's like, I don't think that any of this is remotely allowed in any reality of police work. Let me sit down on this couch and just have some canapes. Like,
I mean, what would CSI say about that? Come
on. Like, yeah, Ted Danson or the other guy whose name
Graham,
is
William Peterson.
It shows up. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like eating the food at the crime scene. So bizarre.
I could just see like pieces of cracker coming out of his mouth. What's the matter? I mean, that's a Frank Drebin move,
Right. That's why it's like oddly comical, but it's played straight too. Like the Harry Hickok's character is not like saying, "What the fuck are you doing?" He's like actively enabling this bizarre Columbo behavior, but. Again, it's Columbo. So, okay, like I kind of just give it a pass because it is Columbo. So there you go.
I've put this out there before. I don't think he actually has a home. I think he sleeps at the office. I think he eats at the crime scenes,
I'm inclined to agree with you given what we've seen of his character in the show so far. He is clearly a guy who exists in a weird place in the world. And I don't know what that place in the world is because, again, like you said, like he's kind of a non-human. Like he's not a human being in the way that he claims he is.
But you're not saying he's a space alien like Dietrich from Barney Miller.
No, but he definitely walks to the beat of his own drum all the time. There is no question of that in my mind.
Do you know one of the things I like about this episode is it is very spare with the Columbo isms, apart from this eating at the crime scene. And, there's at least one or two, one more thing type lines, but we don't have dog. We don't have the car. We don't have, I don't even know if he smokes in this episode. I mean, it seems very light on Columbo touches. And I appreciate that. I think that Stephen J. Cannell was smart enough. He was a fan of the show. Even though you're not supposed to write during the writer's strike, I think he was writing this or at least coming up with the idea during the writer's strike. Once the writer's strike is over, he brings over the basically polished script and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll do this. I wish he had written more episodes of Columbo because I think that this one moves so fast and is so tight that it really works out well. I mean, there's certain things that we've seen before. Hey, I think I figured out how this guy murdered this other guy, so I'm going to try to blackmail him, and I'm kind of an idiot about it, going to ask for too much money and just be a little too greedy about things. I mean, Robert Culp was never going to give Chuck McCann that money whatsoever.
Any amount of money. No. And like that for me is like, that's why I say Chuck McCann's like a fucking dope in this episode. He's like such an idiot. Like, but like the way he holds himself and the way that he looks and oh shucks, Bart, you're gonna pay me? Like that's like literally like that like dumb character. Cause he like again, he's an idiot with a heart of gold. But like in what fucking universe would you go to the person who is willing to murder people and go, hey, not only did I see you murder someone, I could go tell the cops if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. So won't you pay me instead? Wouldn't tell the person who's murdering people anything. Like he has to be played as that dope for it to be believable. And Chuck McCann just plays a dope really well. Like it just, I'm trying to study for real estate. Okay.
Right. My mom's kind of sick.
Yeah, it's like this guy, like there's a mom at home now that is not being taken care of because this guy's a moron. Like, good job.
Well, and it's so obvious when Culp comes into the theater and murders him. It's not his theater. It's not the center where they're showing these things. But still, that you're going to murder your projectionist? It's like, come on. Columbo's just like, you might as well hang some red lights on that, buddy.
Right? Yeah, man. That's the other thing. Like again, Robert Culp he really believes he is above everything with his ability to just murder his own projectionist in his own building.
Yeah.
And then
not even on the street or anything and make it look like a robbery. Who else is going to break into the projection booth and murder Chuck McCann? I guess it's the wife, right? It's Vic Norris's wife who, for whatever reason, I guess she believed that it was him that called on the phone. I mean, the fantasy that Culp is building up just holds no water whatsoever. And Columbo just doesn't buy it for a second. I mean, it's just, you might as well just be hanging a big old guilty sign around your neck.
Yeah, this is one of the episodes where I feel like Columbo knows it's Robert Culp the moment he's talking to him. Like there's, the guns come into play in this episode in an interesting way because, like we've already mentioned, there's a barrel converter, which allows for Robert Culp to shoot the gun, pull the barrel out, replace it with a smaller or larger caliber barrel, and then it doesn't exhibit the signs of being shot, which is a really smart plot twist. I think it should have been used in a different episode. I think it should have been used in the Eddie Arnold episode. Like anything else, like it's what I like about this episode is Legion, but what I dislike about this episode is kind of hard to square away, which is he has guns in his office. Why? Like he's not a former military guy. He hasn't served. He isn't like, ex-Vietnam, which in the next episode, there is that kind of thing. So like it could have even made more sense in that kind of episode with, I don't know. It seems like sometimes there needs to be a moment of kind of thought put into characters and the way that they're murdering other characters. And does that make sense why they would do it that way if they have all these other opportunities to do it a different way? Because you could have had Robert Culp just choke Chuck McCann out with a length of film. Like, and that would have been like, and, you could have had a little bit, this guy's having to get his hands dirty as opposed to hands off shooting someone the way he did before. But I don't know. It felt like a little bit of a contrivance that it's like, this guy has a barrel converter. And it's like, why? Like the Eddie Arnold character would have made much more sense. And again, this character wouldn't have seemed as stupid, straight up shooting people in his own building. Like, I don't know. Like there is a level of like, this guy just is fucking dumb though. At the end of the day, like for as smart as he presents himself to be, he murdered someone in his own building. I get that he had a really interesting and believable alibi, but then he also has guns on the wall. Like it's just,
again, his character from Death Lends a Hand, who's a private detective or a private eye, would have made a lot more sense. Because the guy who's doing the motivational research is not somebody that should have all these guns on his wall. But hey, it's America. Get used to it.
Right, exactly. And he also, on top of the guns, he also has like look to be like knives and like tribal. Like it's, I don't get that aspect of the episode, and that factors into the way that he's caught because he goes to find the barrel converter in the lamp, which reminded me of the X-Files for whatever reason, with Mulder looking for the alien murdering weapon, and it's in the lamp. And I was like, when the other time I've ever seen anyone do anything with a cylindrical thing and a lamp is the X-Files. But I wanted to mention, and this is what I mentioned last episode, there is a scene in this episode that I really enjoy, and it's when they go to the grocery store. It is unlike most of the scenes in this show that we've seen. There are other people running around behind them. Like it's out in the open. I really enjoyed that scene because again, it's that repartee, their back and forth is on full display in that scene. And I loved it. And that jacket that Robert Culp is wearing, man, holy moly. What a choice that jacket is. Bright yellow with white fucking like detailing and accents. And it's crossed over in the front with a huge zip. Oh my God. Like he looks like $1 million. He really does.
While we are picking on this episode at times, I want to pick on the title. This is one of the worst titles. It just
Makes
doesn't
no
make
sense.
Yeah. Like whenever I say this title, like yesterday, I was like, oh, I got to watch Double Exposure. Oh, is that the one with Dick Van Dyke? No, that's not the one with Dick Van Dyke. That would make sense for the Dick Van Dyke one when we get to it. This one, like Suitable for Framing is better for this one because you're talking about frames of film, but obviously that's a perfect title for Suitable for Framing. Just something else like Between the Lines or or hidden messages or something, just not double exposure, because that has nothing to do with subliminal advertising.
We kind of touched on the subliminal advertising a little bit already, but I think they should have leaned more into that. I think that they should have done more with it. I liked how he gets caught. I just think that the thing with the gun is kind of the weak part of that equation. But I like the idea of Columbo, going, oh my, this guy's doing the subliminal thing, so I should be able to get him the same way he got me. I like that a lot. I mean, again, using our antagonist's own, profession against them is something that I'm a huge fan of. I think that works rather well.
Yeah.
And they've done it before.
Perfect.
They've done it before. It's just, this is the first time where it's like, I think that this is the best that I've seen it. Like, works really well. And they actually get a genuine reaction out of the Bart Kepple character being like, oh my God. But again, I go back to the idea of like, I do find it a little hard to believe that he wouldn't have thought Columbo might do that, just based on the fact that he's meeting with the George Weiner character and he sees it. And then he there's the one scene that is a little strange is the second part of that scene, once George Weiner leaves, Robert Culp is just like being really strange with Columbo, because he's like giving Columbo everything that he would need to get him to incriminate himself. And I find it hard to believe that he, as a character, isn't realizing that's what's going on. It is a little, again, it's a weird kind of little rough edge in this episode. In an otherwise really great episode, they do have to make the villain seem a little stupider in that moment and towards the third act for him to be caught, because otherwise I feel like this is one of the characters who might have been able to get away with it, or at least enough circumstantial evidence.
I knew that he's going to get him with the subliminal stuff in the final film. I kept thinking of another episode, but it's not going to come about until the 7th season, where there's a gun hidden in an elevator. So I kept waiting for him to go to the elevator and like take pictures inside the elevator. So it's so weird how my mind mixed those two episodes up.
Well, and I think, that moment where he goes to find the gun barrel, I mean, again, that's a really good gotcha moment. It's just the guns don't need to be part of this episode is more, I think, kind of like the bigger takeaway for me is like, they seem, for someone as smart as Bart Kepple, like, why would you use a gun? It seems like a really easy way to get caught. And yes, we understand that he has this barrel conversion kit and he has those guns on the wall. So it's a little bit like he's posturing. He's like, come and fucking catch me. Prove that I did it. But why are you keeping it in your office? Why are you keeping the conversion barrel in your office, my friend? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, throw that thing in a river or a lake or something. But
melt it down and turn it into something else, but do not keep it in arm's reach. Unless, again, it's just he's being characterized as a man who thinks he's above everything, and that's reasonable for someone like him to just be like, I'm going to just keep this in my office because fuck it, where else would I keep it? Which, I mean, does somewhat make sense based on real life serial killers and other people. I mean, BTK kept all of his trophies in his desk drawer in his office in a literal public building that was run by the city. Like, he kept it in his city office. So it's not unreasonable to think, but Bart Kepple's not that kind of character. Unless, and again, this is the other thing that I wonder with that intro scene, would that intro scene have also fleshed out the idea that this is maybe not the first time he's done this? He's done this more as well, which would make sense why he's kept this barrel in his office, makes sense why he keeps the guns there as a form of intimidation, but also like, should I need to, I can do it. But at the same time, if that were the case, Columbo might have said something like, oh yeah, this is, keeps happening at this place, but that's not the case.
Yeah, I never kept any trophies of my victims. I just ate them. He's got two things really working for him. One, he's got the alibi of his voice on the tape recorder,
which is smart,
which gives him also a ticking clock. And we don't really emphasize the ticking clock too much. We just know he has to be back before the end of the film, but we don't know how long that film is.
Right.
The other thing is he's got this guy who is incredibly thirsty, and he's making him thirsty. He's giving him all this salted caviar. He's showing him all these, images of iced tea on ice, showing him, desert scenes and offering him relief. Why not put something in a drink? Why not maybe even put something in the caviar? But moreover, put something in a drink. Even if he's out in the hallway, it's just like, oh, hey, and like, obviously they don't have bottled water in 1973, but if you're just like, oh, well, here I happen to be at this Coke machine or something and hand him over a tainted drink, that'd be nice. Or if he wanted to kidnap him and take him out to someplace else, put his body in a car, drive him out someplace and dispose of it there. He's running off with his mistress or something. I don't know. But yeah, it feels like, to your point, the guns are superfluous. We really don't need those. And that they are so displayed in his office, it's a little much.
Well, and if they characterized him a little differently, it would have made perfect sense. It's just it never went there. Like all they would have had to have said was like, oh, I'm ex-military, or I worked, even go as far as to say like, well, after I got out of the military, when they were utilizing my services for subliminal film, because again, like
MK Ultra shit,
right? Like why not? I mean, this is the 70s. Like this is prime time for that. But instead, it's almost like the episode didn't go weird enough. Like, which again, it's Columbo. I'm not expecting it to get bogged down in the weirdness of its own narrative, but I think it kind of needed it here because we are talking about a concept here. I mean, the way he gets caught is subliminal insertion of images into the film. So there's some of it that's already kind of nebulous in the air. Why not go even further with it? Like you said, with an MK Ultra or like a mind control or just something to give us a sense as to why this guy, who is ostensibly just a doctor, has weapons on the wall of his office. If he's ex-military, it makes perfect sense. The guns make perfect sense. Otherwise, I have a hard time getting to that moment with the episode. And I kind of wish it had gone any other direction. But at the same time, I like the episode so much, I'm willing to just kind of, okay, that's what you want to do with it. But I can't say I wouldn't have wanted a shot of Robert Culp killing Chuck McCann with a piece of film. I think that would have been a great image to have him choking someone that's off screen or something to that effect. What we get, I think, speaks more to just, well, guns are bad and guns are violent, and it's a pretty violent way to kill someone is with a gun. But stabbing someone is much more personal. And again, the way Robert Culp is talking to the character at the beginning of the episode, or the Vic Norris character, like it should have been more personal than it is. And it doesn't seem as personal as it could have gotten, especially with what is being threatened of the dismantling of clearly this guy's life work.
I mean, if you want to talk about the zeitgeist, this episode came out in December of 1973. And I don't remember which month Subliminal Seduction came out, but Wilson Bryan Key's Subliminal Seduction is like one of the books about subliminal advertising, which really kind of rocked the boat and pulled back the curtain of like, here's all of these ways that you're being manipulated by advertisers. I'm sure that Don Draper was pretty upset by that when it came out, but they're having this episode the same year that book comes out. Pretty smart. It's almost like when you're watching, your Law and Orders and you see a case that was just in the news.
Well, and what's funny is when I think of subliminal messaging in films, I mean, there is only one movie that I think of, which is Room 237. I don't know how much of it is real in that movie and how much of it is just the Room 237 people, or I guess The Shining, Room 237, the Room 237 people. That's what I think of when I think of subliminal messaging in movies. And I don't know how much of that is real. Like, I don't know how much of that is legit or how much is just them kind of prognosticating that that's what Kubrick was doing. But they mention that book that you just mentioned in Room 237, and they talk about, the sex in the ice cubes. And that is like this, like you said, like this was part of the public discussion at the time. And this was a thing that people were thinking about. And I mean, Robert Culp even mentions like they've outlawed it. They didn't allow us to do it because it's, and like, yeah, this is all levels of factual and levels of reality. And again, I also think that's why I like this episode so much, is because it does feel like it's part of that Columbo discussion of like cutting edge technology coming into play in the 70s, like, ooh, answering machines. Like, remember? Because that was one of the episodes, like, it's the answering machine. And like what was the other thing was like it was like not closed circuit TV, but that's in this episode. But the the inside office phone line, wasn't that in one of the episodes?
That was
too?
just
like,
in the last episode where he's waiting for that light to show up.
Right. So like I love that it's also still on, like, would be, like you mentioned, the cutting edge of things at the time. Like, Columbo is contending with real world criminals who are utilizing real world technology. Like, I all have always liked that aspect of this show. And this episode is like, it is right in the conversation for like the best usage of technology so far in the show's run.
I'm trying to remember because there was another movie, and I want to say it was a TV movie that was about an advertising agency. And I want to say that Lee Majors from the $6 Million Man, I want to say he might have been in that, because I remember there was a movie that Craig Baldwin did, and you know, Craig Baldwin's all about the found footage stuff, and he was taking a lot from this movie, and I was like, what is this? This looks fascinating. And I found it for like $1 at a dollar store, and I have yet to watch it, but it looks pretty cool.
I'm a fan of really getting into these kinds of conversations and like what this movie is talking about. I am a huge fan, or this episode, I'm a huge fan of what this episode is trafficking in the world of film and subliminal, and like what can you make someone do without them knowing? Like, I'm a huge fan of that conversation and all of that. And I appreciate any cinema or media that is interested in having that conversation or utilizing it. Because yeah, the moment where Robert Culp again kind of realizes what's happening it's one of the great moments in this show. I think by the time we're done with this, I think it will still stand out for me as like, I mean, because we talk about suitable for framing all the time. And this is right up there for like a genuinely like horrified reaction by the antagonist at like Columbo's wherewithal. But again, I think Columbo was just getting Robert Culp to explain everything just so he could be like, yep, you know what this is. So you know when I do this that I've got you. I don't think Columbo had to have anything explained to him. I think it was just for the benefit of him going, he's going to bury himself here and I'm going to give him the shovel and let him do it. And yeah, I think if you could really, any condemnation of this episode for me really does go to the guns and that being unrealistic. But also, I mean, again, I give this episode a pass in Columbo knowing it's Robert Culp. I have complained about that before, that Columbo knows the moment he's on screen who the villain is and how Ketchum is already obvious. But I feel like Robert Culp in this episode did it to himself. Like it's his own goddamn fault at this point. If they didn't think it was you immediately, I don't know who they would have thought it would have been.
Well, when he gets caught in the lie about the tape recorder,
right? When
he's just, you know, when he sends the film back immediately, you know, people act differently when they're upset, Lieutenant. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think so, my friend.
So you finished opening the mail after you found out about your brother's death? You know, all those things that Columbo loves to do. And yeah, I love the withering look that Culp gives to George Weiner after he's explaining the subliminal stuff to Columbo. That's great. It's like, oh, you're going to go check that thing? And I love that Culp, like I said, he's not big in this episode. And he never really gets big. He never busts out with that rage that Culp has. And he almost has like an affect to his voice at certain times where I'm like, is he putting on an accent or what is this? Whatever he's doing, I love it. Think that he just kills it in this episode.
There are some moments where he's like walking away from Columbo and he is so beyond annoyed. He's like, all right, bye, take care, whatever the fuck. And he's like trying so hard to get away from this little man who is antagonizing him. But yeah, he never lets it slip. I think you're right. Like, this performance really is just like, it's a masterclass in this kind of acting and this expectation, but also doing that thing where you can't give up that you are the villain. You can't a hero know that, because that's the intention here, but you can act supremely annoyed with him, which he does. He's just so annoyed. And that's the energy. Instead of that anger, I like that he's just like frustrated. It's like Robert Culp is frustrated this entire episode that this fucking guy, you know that every time he leaves those interactions with Columbo, he's just like, this fucking guy just will not leave me alone. And I'm not saying you don't get that with a lot of the other villains in this show, but you get to see it more with Robert Culp. His level of exasperation, like I mentioned with him going into the grocery store, like, he doesn't want him there. He has to deal with the fact that he's literally interrupting the work site now. This guy is interjecting himself into this man's business of making money. And he's just like, would you just fucking leave? But he can't say that to him, but he can't. And it's that body language that Robert Culp has that, like, I think you mentioned it early on when we started this show. Like, he is one of those people that when they show up, like, he's a standout. And yeah, he really is, for me so far, like, he's the one Columbo villain to beat in terms of genuine characterization that can go from character to character and be different, but also the same level of just frustration or anger is there. It's just Culp's ability to mask it and let it come through is really smart.
So we've had Culp 3 times, and we are about to have Jack Cassidy a second time. I'm really looking forward to having the return of Jack Cassidy as we come back next month and talk about Publish or Perish. And this one, I don't know if I really remember it from the title. So excited to revisit this one again, because I definitely remember Jack Cassidy's third appearance and obviously his first appearance, but I don't know if I remember the second one. So I'm curious to see how that goes.
I'm excited to talk about it. I have seen it a couple times now because I just let Peacock keep going, and I haven't gotten any further than the next episode, but I am excited to talk about it. It's very different from this episode in a very fun way. This is this for me, like, genuinely one of the best episodes of the show so far, for sure for me. Like, I'm glad, like, watching this show and getting to see an episode like the one we just talked about is the reason I like doing this. This is an episode I will come back to outside of this show, and that is a success. I think a success of this show is being able to be like, I want to watch this or this or this. And, like, okay, this show is really flexing its creativity and its quality in this third season. Like, this third season has been really good for the most part so far.
Yeah, I'm digging it, and I'm glad you're digging it too. I was a little afraid with, all the double murders like we talked about at one point. Would that be effective? Would it not? But so far, I'm with it.
I enjoyed this episode immensely, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. But this is a really, really good one.
Well, Chris, until we come back next month to talk about some more Columbo, what are you working on these days?
Audio, all available at weirdingwaymedia.com. You and I do this show together. We also talk about another 70s, now 80s cop show, Barney Miller. We've also covered Kolchak, the Night Stalker. We also cover horror anthology TV shows with Midnight Viewing. And then I do the Culture Cast, which is a weekly movie podcast. If you're into movies, you should check it out. And if you're not into movies, hey, okay, cool. What about you, Mike?
Who's not into movies?
Plenty of people. It's weird to me, but
yeah.
Shame,
no,
really.
I prefer books. I mean, books are fine. I'm not making fun of books.
I hope not.
No.
It's just who wants to do a podcast on books. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When I was in high school, I got made fun of for using dictionary words, and I so wanted to ask them, well, what words aren't in the dictionary? But
right.
Anyway, yeah, for me, I'm pretty much doing the same thing, but most of the things that I deal with are around movies, except for all of the 1970s TV shows, and now I guess 80s TV shows when we are on the Midnight Viewing podcast. And now we're talking about The Dark Side, which is a 1980s show. What the hell? This is very off-brand for me, Chris. And then pretty soon, Barney Miller is going to be in the 80s as well. I'm going to be totally upset. I'm not going to know which way is up.
Wouldn't it be a shame to get with the times, man?
Next thing I know, it's going to lead me to harder stuff like talking about this week's movie releases.
Oh God.
Ugh.
Topicality be damned.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror. We'll cover all the subgenres, so join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.